How we doing, everybody? It's your guy Wardy here. It's currently June 9th, 2025 at the time of this video being recorded and pumped out there to each and every one of you. And oh boy, do we have ourselves a discussion, because after the Mets swept the Colorado Rockies in Denver and ultimately swept the season series 6-0, let's take a complete deep dive on this Mets off day at the time of the video coming out into, yes, the top not 5 but top 10. Yes, you heard that correctly. Top 10 Mets trade deadline targets, as we're going to be deep diving players that have been reportedly connected to the Mets, not only this season, but over the past off season, players that have not been connected to the Mets, but may very well find themselves connected leading up to the trade deadline, and everything in between, folks. So please make sure to smash that like and subscribe on your way in, as this is a massive video that we're going to have to break down right here, right now, to get into what players could actually find themselves landing with the New York Metropolitans there by the MLB trade deadline, July 31st of this season. So without further ado, everybody, let's deep dive everything that you need to know here on the trade deadline front. But first, let's shout out our amazing sponsor here at SeatGeek that has you covered with all your ticketing needs. In case you guys don't know, SeatGeek, with over 70,000 active events to choose from, making them the #1 rated ticketing app in the game today for a reason. Why do I love utilizing SeatGeek so much? And this goes well beforehand. We have them here as a channel-wide sponsor throughout the course of the 162 season for Major League Baseball, folks. I love SeatGeek so much, and why I've been utilizing them for years, as you guys can see here, is their grading system. 1 to 10, red to green. What that means is, as you're seeking tickets there in the app, if you find tickets more in the 7th or 10 range in the green, it's a great bang for your buck, and you should seek them there with SeatGeek. Otherwise, you might see some tickets more in the 1 through 5 range on a rating, and the red, which is not a good bang for your buck, and you're probably overspending for what you otherwise should be doing there, and you should seek tickets elsewhere there still in the SeatGeek app. So whether it comes to Mets tickets, concert show tickets, comedy show tickets, you name it, SeatGeek has you covered for all of your ticketing needs, folks. So make sure to head over to SeatGeek by utilizing our unique promo code down below there with that unique link. It is WARDY10 with the promo code for 10% off your next ticket purchase. And shout out once more to our amazing friends at SeatGeek for being an amazing sponsor here on the platform. Now, guys, without further ado, let's hop right into this discussion. And let's begin here with number 10 on today's list. And I would just like to preface that this top 10 is less to do really about it being a rating as to which player is so much better than the other, versus it being more of a loose rating. And I just wanted to do a 1 through 10 in general, because we have a lot of players to break down. It makes more sense to do a 10 to 1 versus just saying, all right, this player, you guys get what I'm trying to say. But without further ado, let's begin here with number 10 here on today's list. And this is a player that we actually talked about a good amount in this past offseason, if you guys are paying attention at all. And yes, that is going to be Mr. David Bednar for the Pittsburgh Pirates. If you guys don't know the story on David Bednar, let me enlighten you, because Bednar is a player that we actually connected on the platform between the Mets and the Pirates this past offseason. And there were some early rumblings going on with Bednar to a degree, and we understood why, because Bednar went from being the star reliever there for the Pittsburgh Pirates, especially from a couple seasons ago in 2022-2023 range, to finding himself there as not even really a major league caliber reliever at times that we saw in 2024. His 2024 season was absolutely abysmal. Bednar will be the first player to tell you that. That was his first true year of adversity that we saw, especially at the minor league level for the Pittsburgh Pirates. He had a 5.77 ERA and 4.37 expected ERA, with a 9 K per 9 to a 4.3 walks per 9 and 57 innings there with the Pirates in the 2024 season. This comes after having 3 consecutive seasons of having a 2 ERA, a 2.2 ERA, and a 2.6 dominant innings there for the Pirates. And now we're seeing that dominance starting to unfold yet again here. And there are some connections between the Mets and the Pirates, and Bednar in particular. But so far this season, in 21.2 innings at the time of this video coming out, he has just under a 13 K per 9, a just over 2 walks per 9, and love the K to walk ratio, a 3.74 ERA and a 3.09 expected ERA. And what is most notable about Mr. Bednar is that he's back in the 89th percentile there in average fastball velocity at 97 plus in the 4-seam. He's in the 96th percentile this year in K percentage at 34.4, whip percentage at 80th percentile, 84th percentile walk percentage, and well above league average there in expected ERA and expected batting average. So more of the David Bednar that you expect to see see and really made that 2024 season come off as an anomaly. The Mets, however, we did suggest that especially if the Pirates were selling a little bit low on Bednar this past offseason, how he could be a potential fit and maybe a forward Pirate turned Pirate again there, and Starling Marte could return as that corresponding move to a degree where the Mets ate the majority of his contract in the final year of his deal and then return the Mets get back at Bednar off of a down season that they can try to get him to have a bounce back year from. Well, Bednar's already having a bounce back season, so he's not going to necessarily be the cheapest guy imaginable, but knowing that the Pirates are not going to be going anywhere yet again this year, they will be selling at the deadline, and it shouldn't cost an arm and a leg binding stretch to bring in a high leverage option, which is certainly what Bednar is. Think Jose Butto, but better, that can certainly handle more high leverage for you. And as we're seeing from the expected numbers, Bednar is looking more and more like the same that we saw from a couple years ago versus what we got last season there and what was an anomaly of a bad 2024 campaign. Mets fans, let me know your thoughts on David Bednar as a nice flamethrower right-hand option in this bullpen for more high leverage options versus what the Mets currently have in said pen, because you can never have enough arms, one, and who knows what the future is going to hold for Butto, Brazoban, and many others in the pen throughout the course of the 162. But going on now, everybody, from Mr. David Bednar at number 10, let's go on to now his teammate here at number 9, and that's going to be Mitch Keller here for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Now, Mitch Keller is a player that we have talked about on the platform a lot, and in case you guys don't know, Mitch Keller has had ties to the Mets in the past as well, but whether he finds himself landing in Queens, that has yet to be obviously decided. Mitch Keller has been, in my opinion, one of the more rock-solid middle-of-the-rotation starters that we've seen in the National League so far this season there that we've seen for the Pittsburgh Pirates. Mind you, he's still on that 4-year, $71 million contract, and that actually might be 3 years now, given the fact that the contract entered this season. So either way, it's a 3 or 4 year deal. You still have plenty of team control with Mitch Keller. 13 games played, 76 plus innings this season, a 4.13 ERA, but a 3.93 expected ERA. And this is very much the norm for Keller, who's usually an innings eater, can give you north of 170 to 200 innings each and every season. And Keller, the same man who bothered me and every other Mets fan back a couple years ago when he drilled Marte and broke his hand down the stretch in their 2022 season. I can forgive and forget, especially if the Mets buy a little bit low here on Mitch Keller. As we know, the Pirates will be selling, and Keller would be a really nice, formidable piece to add right to the heart of this rotation. Why, you might ask? Keller has the stuff, and he has all the makings to be one of these guys that I could just see thriving with Hefner, Yagers, Driscoll, and everyone else that the Mets have as part of their pitching lab. He's currently in the 88th percentile in breaking run value on his pitches, 76th percentile in fastball run value, 78th percentile in walk percentage, 79th in barrel percentage, but he is not doing too hot in the whip percentage. K percentage is down, not getting the swing and miss like he otherwise would like to see. That's why the K per 9 is down this year for him. Usually more in that 9 plus range, but he's in the 7.19 so far this year, or in the 8 to 9 plus range, I should say. So has some work to be had there when you look at the four-seam sweeper, sinker, slider, change, and curveball mix. But that's a 5 to 6 pitch mix that we know very well this Mets pitching lab, if they got their hands on, could do some serious damage, and the great kind of damage to get the best out of Mitch Keller. Mets fans, I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Are you for or against Mitch Keller? Because while, yes, the Mets already have plenty of arms, Keller not only has the stuff, but in my opinion, he has the makeup and the youth to be a guy that could really impact this rotation for the better, not just for 2025 and potentially deep playoff run, but for the next number of years there. Even with having Canning, having Holmes, having all the pieces the Mets currently have in the rotation, as well as the farm that are working their way up, I think there's a lot of upside to Keller, and I think he really is just a pitching lab away from becoming more of that ace caliber like starter for a team versus being more of your prototypical, anywhere from 2 to 5 in that range, depending on how deep your rotation is for whatever team is going to look to acquire him. So Mitch Keller here, we have at number 9 here on our rating. At number 8 here, folks, on our top 10 Mets trade deadline targets, we have a Tampa Bay Ray, and we're going with Garrett Clevinger. And there are multiple reasons as to why we're going with Garrett Clevinger today, but let's highlight the obvious ones here, everybody. And first, I want to give a shout out to my guy James Shiano, that many of you guys know in the baseball space as well. James and Mark talked about Garrett not long ago there as a potential fit for the Mets. And funny enough, while I was doing my homework, it came after the fact of doing my homework and realizing that they had spoke about him too, because Clevinger I thought of right away when I thought of the Tampa Bay Rays, because it kind of feels like it's inevitable that David Stearns is going to go out of his way to make one more trade with the Rays. Simply put, we've seen Stearns make more deals with the Rays since becoming president of baseball operations than any other team thus far, and that's notable. So bearing that in mind and knowing that the Mets are indeed in need of a lefty, And mind you, we are still waiting in the wings to see when a guy like Brooks Raley could potentially be impactful for this Mets team, as they have signed him back. We're just kind of awaiting word as to when his rehab will begin, and they go on from there. But the Mets don't know when they're getting Brooks Raley back this season. AJ Minter's already out for the entire season. Danny Young's already out for the entire season. So what are the Mets going to do? They should go out and bring in a quality lefty. And Clevenger is all those things and then some for this Mets team, as he has not only had some really respectable back-to-back seasons there, really 3 straight seasons where he's been rock solid for the Rays. Had a 3 flat ERA in 15 games there that we saw in 2023, a 3.75 ERA last year in 68 games, and now a 2.59 ERA with not an inflated expected ERA of 3.25 in 26 games and 24 innings so far this season. The fastball velocity is great for lefties, sitting right around 96 plus with the sinker and the 4-seam. He has the slider, sweeper, and the cutter. All the S's. We love the triple S's, if not the quadruple S's. Sweepers, sliders, splitties, sinkers. All those pitches, all the S's is what I know this lab loves to work with, and Clevenger would be beautiful. 95th percentile whiff percentage, 93rd percentile in K percentage, 87th percentile walk percentage so far this year. Lots of love here from Mr. Garrett Clevenger, and the Mets, again, as I stated already, are in dire need of another quality lefty in their bullpen. They have Jose Castillo, who has yet to allow a run throughout his first 7 games with the Mets this year after being acquired, after being batting practice for the Arizona Diamondbacks. See, the Mets just get the best out of these guys because their lab is really starting to enter that Tampa Bay Rays, the LA Dodger category of just getting the best out of guys each and every year. Garrett Clevenger is already starting to thrive the way that we have seen to a degree. It's I believe it's Clevenger, but if it's Clevenger, I apologize if I'm butchering it. Regardless of everybody, Garrett, keep an eye on him. He is a lefty option that most certainly can find himself being dealt at the trade deadline, and this feels like one of the most Stearns pickups, if not the most Stearns pickup, out of all the players that we're going to be discussing today, based on how much it's going to take to acquire him, which should not be too much, especially for a reliever who has team control until 2028 and is on a $1.2 million contract, but not the hottest commodity leading up to the deadline. I think a player that's going to go under a lot of other teams' radars. That's where Stearns and the Mets can certainly pounce here for a true quality lefty option that has high velocity and has upside with a 3 to 5 pitch mix. So that's what I got to say, Mr. Garrett. Let me know how you guys feel about him in the comments down below, because now let's get on to number 7 in today's video, and that's going to be the outfielder from the Cincinnati Reds, and TJ Friedl. Now, TJ Friedl, I will say, is not my favorite player on this list by any stretch, but I certainly see how he has upside to be a nice scrappy fit for this Mets team, especially when evaluating their outfield, because when we talk about what you're getting in Mr. TJ Friedl, you know, has had some respectable seasons, has had an 18 home run season before, 13 home runs last year that we saw in 341 plate appearances. This season, 5 home runs already, 9 stolen bags there, 23 RBIs, a 297 average, a 387 on base, and a 427 slug for just under 2 WAR and a 126 WRC plus, meaning he's 26% better than the average batter in baseball. Friedl is having a nice season here for Cincinnati, and he's in the 96th percentile in base running value, 87th in batting run value, 62nd in fielding run value. He's well below league average in average exit velocity. He's not a hard hitter at all, doesn't barrel at all whatsoever. This is more of your true, like, uber athletic outfielder that's a speed demon on the base pass, or I shouldn't even say speed demon. He's just a good base runner because he's actually below league average as a sprint speed runner that you see there per Baseball Savant in the 39th percentile. But he is a guy that's really just been that scrappy ball player. You know how I love to call Tyrone Taylor, if you guys follow the channel here, a true ball player? Friedl falls in that category too. And pretty much he's a lefty option of a Tyrone Taylor, just with much better upside with what you're getting on the offensive output so far this season. And that is not a slight at all to Tyrone Taylor, because Taylor has been one of the most clutch batters for the Mets, especially late and close. If you look at his respective splits this season, they're amazing. He has like a 400 average in late and close situations so far this year. Friedl, however, though, has been fantastic for the Cincinnati Reds, a team that is likely not going anywhere this season. The Mets could take advantage of a guy that's in the 79th percentile in squared up percentage, 97th in chase percentage. So he's going to take his walks for sure, leading to his just under 400 OBP so far. An 89th percentile in whiff percentage, 82nd K percentage, 81st in walk percentage. It's not going to cost you an arm and a leg by any stretch to acquire a guy like Friedl that is, you know, a free agent in 2029 and is still on, you know, a sub $1 million contract. So that's notable. It's good value for sure. Good bang for your buck, if you will. Shout out SeatGeek, right? But in all seriousness, Friedl, why does he make sense for this Mets team? Because one, they could utilize another center field option right now. now. He bats from the left side, so it's a nice kind of balance between himself and Tyrone Taylor. And listen, if Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri ball out and it kind of limits Friedel, then okay, that's fine. As long as you're not giving up an arm and a leg to acquire this guy, I think it really makes sense for him to be another true outfield option that, again, can play center, left, right, all over the outfield for you, but especially as a lefty bat that can actually handle the outfield, unlike Jesse Winker, given the fact that he is now out with an oblique strain from the one and only play he made in the core outfield this year, the doubleheader against the Cardinals. If you know, you know. Friedel does make a level of sense for this Mets team, and John Heyman and Joel Sherman did discuss him as a potential Mets trade option in their recent podcast, which I suggest you guys would check out should you guys have interest. But now let's go on from talking about Mr. Friedel at number 7 on our list to now getting on to number 6, and that is, yes, it is time to talk about Sandy. No, we're not talking about the former president for the Mets, Mr. Sandy Alderson. Trust me, we're done talking about Alderson. Probably forever, hopefully. But in Sandy Alcantara, we got a lot to talk about because Sandy, when we first discussed him early this season, there was a lot to like. Since then, not so much. Sandy, in 12 starts this year, 57 innings, has a just under 8 ERA, an expected ERA that's far greater, like 3 runs down, but still at 4.96, a 5 FIP, a 4.84 SI ERA, and a just under 1.6 WHIP. So what in the heck is going on with Sandy Alcantara? So a couple of things I want to say right away. Sandy, obviously his first full season back, coming back from his Tommy John surgery. What did I worry about the most with Sandy? Especially as he was the Don Mattingly ace for the Marlins a number of years ago. Don Mattingly drilled this man into the ground. When no other team was consistently having their starters go 7, 8, and 9 games, 9 full innings in a game, Sandy was that guy constantly for the Marlins for a number of years. I think the results that we're getting this season are to a degree fatigue, are to a degree the reality of kind of having his peak already, and now he's been getting absolutely drilled into the ground, and this is a reality. I think it also has to go in direct hand with the fact that Sandy, this is his first full season back since the 2023 year. A lot's changed since then already, where he had 184 innings at that season. This year, though, he's in the 92nd percentile in fastball velocity at 97 with his four seam, which is great, and the ground ball percentage is in the 84th percentile, so you love those things, but everything else is putrid. He's getting barreled hard. When he's giving up contact, he's getting absolutely destroyed by opponent batters right now. So what can the Mets do? The Mets can buy low on Sandy Alcantara, and they can add him to the lab and see what can be had and what can be adjusted, because if there's any team out there that I think can get the best out of Sandy right now from what we're currently getting, is without a doubt, without question, in my humble opinion, the New York Mets and their pitching lab. I think of them. I think of the Rays. I think of the Dodgers. I think of, any team that has a respectable lab. The Houston Astros fall in that category as well, and plenty others. I think Sandy needs to change of scenery. I think he's going to get a change of scenery, and thankfully, because of his lack of production, if there's any positive out of it, is that you're not going to have to give up as much to acquire someone like him. You should be able to buy pretty low on Sandy. Even if he starts to pick it up by the trade-in line, it won't be more than, just a month and a half sample size from this point on. So we'll see what he can do over that time period leading up to his inevitable trade that'll happen with the Mets or another team. But Sandy still has the velocity. He still has some of the stuff there with the four seam, the sinker, the change, the curveball, and the slider. And the Mets can get their paws on a guy like Sandy, I really think that they could get more of the best out of him and hopefully get him back to being a top 3 starter in what would be the Mets rotation, and a flamethrower at that to pair with guys like Kodai Senga, among others. So Mets fans, definitely let me know how you feel about Sandy here at number 6 on our top 10 trade deadline target list. Because now going on from number 6, let's go on to number 5. And at number 5, everybody, we have Mr. Luis Robert. Now, Luis Robert is a player that, if you guys have been following the platform, I've been obsessed with for a number of years. When Robert first broke out on the scene with the Chicago White Sox, he really felt like he was going to be the next true 5-tool phenom across Major League Baseball, especially when you take a look at his season a couple years ago in 2023 with 38 home runs, 20 stolen bags, a 264 average, a 315 on base, but a 542 slug for 857 OPS, well above league average as a batter. That alone told you as a fan that, okay, Luis Robert really might be something special. The problem is that we have now went on 2 seasons where Luis Robert, injury plagued or not, has been absolutely abysmal at the plate when he's been up there. And how much of this is his own fault versus him needing a change of scenery? Because I think both things are true at the same time. Let's start with last season for Robert, because he had a 224 average, a 278 on base, and a 379 slug for 657 OPS, 14 home runs, 23 stolen bags there, and that was that. This season, he's even worse. A 181 average, a 270 on base, a 286 slug, which is so hard to fathom. A negative 0.3 WAR, 58 on the WRC plus. He's over 40% below league average as a batter. 5 home runs, 23 RBIs, 21 stolen bases, some of the most in all Major League Baseball already, 57 games. Why would the Mets consider someone like Luis Robert? Well, for one, they were connected to Luis Robert over this past month there from Bob Nightingale of USA Today, as the Mets are considering multiple center field options for them to look to acquire the traded line. Secondly, when at his best, Robert has some of, if not the highest upside out of any bat that we are actually discussing in today's video. But at the same time, that 2023 season is looking more and more like an anomaly than like a potential certainty to happen again, because Robert has fallen so far from grace while batting in Southside Chicago with the White Sox and no man's land. It's very easy to be uninspired there playing for the White Sox. I can see why. And clearly this guy is just a change of scenery away from hopefully at least getting back to being a league average batter and then working your way up from there. But the speed is absurd with a player like Robert. The bat to ball skills, we know the power is there. There's no denying the power is there. The bat speed's there as well. He's in the 93rd percentile in bat speed this season. He's in the 70th percentile in barrel percentage. He's league average in average exit velocity right around 90 miles per hour, but all the expected numbers are horrendous. He's striking out at a stupid rate. I mean, it feels like north of 50% if it's not already. 74th percentile in the walk percentage somehow. 67th in outs above average defensively. 79th in arm value. 65th in arm strength, and 86th in sprint speed. Again, this guy can be a huge weapon for you defensively on the base pass, and then if he can tap into any of the offensive talent and upside he's had in recent years, this could be a guy that you buy low on that would have costed you the farm 2.5 years ago, that now you could buy for a fraction of the price, a fraction of the cost, and land a potential stud in the making in the outfield if you can get Robert back right and get him back in a groove at the major league level, the way he most certainly has not been in that groove for the past couple years now. Let me know, guys, are you at all interested in Robert? Do you think that the Mets shouldn't even bother because of how putrid these numbers have been so far this year? Do you believe in the upside with someone like him, given his age, controllability of his contract, and knowing that the Mets have full control with a team option there beginning next season? I think around 20 mil AAV. I can understand, though, given how underwhelming he's been, that teams probably don't even necessarily want to lock in Robert on that guaranteed 20 mil next year unless they fully believe that he can break out and get back to the batter that he was 2 seasons ago. But let me know all your thoughts there on the Robert front, everybody, because he is our number 5 selection. Now at number 4, folks, let's get on to the pitching. We have Mr. Freddie Peralta. Now, this is a big discussion because Freddie Peralta, I know some of you Mets fans are probably saying to yourself, as well as if he's on the thumbnail, Wardy, why are we talking about Freddie Peralta? This guy doesn't make any sense for the Mets. So let me expand as to why he does. Now, the obvious one is that, one, you can never have enough pitching. The obvious one, too, is David Stearns' long ties with Freddie Peralta going back to his time as GM and president for the Milwaukee Brewers. Then you add in the simple fact that the Brewers, a team that is not performing to their liking so far this season, not looking like a team that's going to win the division, with the Chicago Cubs having a fantastic run to this point. The Brewers may still, in fact, find themselves in contention for playoffs and a wild card spot, but the reality is that this is prime time for a team like Milwaukee to give up on a starter that still has another year of control. This is something that they tend to do with relievers and starters, and Stearns knows very well, as he traded still a controllable Josh Hader a couple of years ago from Milwaukee. We've seen them do this with other starters over the years as well, and Freddie Peralta now falls in that category. And there are pros and cons of Freddie Peralta and why I think he is a nice fit for this Mets team, and I do see plenty of the upside. But let's begin with his 2025 numbers. At 13 games and 71 innings, a sub-3 ERA, a 3.69 expected ERA, a sub-4 FIP, and a sub-4 SI ERA. Now, if you look at Freddie's numbers this season versus last year, the most notable thing right away is the drop in the K per 9, in my opinion, at least, because Freddie Peralta is usually this guy that ranges anywhere from, 10.5 to 12 to even 13 strikeouts per nine. This season, he's at the lowest rate he's been since 2022. Closest is the last time he's been since 2022, I should say. And with a 9.51 K per nine to a 3.69 walks per nine. Don't love the K to walk ratio. And you look at the home run rate, and it is at a 1.14, a lower rate than the past 2 seasons, but not overly ideal either. So why should the Mets consider someone like Freddie Peralta? Well, one, all the familiarity in the world with a pitcher like this if you're David Stearns, right? And Peralta still has all the makings of being an ace caliber pitcher, but for the Mets would just be, one of their key first top 3 starters. That is what you bring in a guy in Freddie, and a guy who's had playoff experience the way that Peralta did against our Mets last year as well. Why do I like the upside with him? I like the upside a lot because this is a guy that won't cost you the entire farm. Yes, I know he has an additional year of control in his contract, but it's a 2026 club option, so it's not guaranteed control. The Mets can dictate that, obviously, if they would like to bring him back. I'm sure that they would. He's going to be looking for a big payday, obviously, once his contract is officially up after the club option, after the 2026 season, I should say. But for now, what are you getting in Mr. Freddie Peralta? You are getting a starter that could really be a weapon for this Mets team to really pair along with Kodai Senga among others in their rotation, because the Mets pitching has been great this year. I know some of you guys are watching this video saying to yourself, Wardy, why do you care so much about starter options? Because you have to realize what's happening right now is not necessarily the same thing that's going to be the case for the Mets and their status by the time we reach a trade deadline. For all we know, the Mets pitching gets exposed terribly leading up to the deadline. They go from being the best pitching staff overall in baseball to maybe laboring around middle of the pack, if not below league average, for a multiple week stretch. That multiple week stretch alone could really damage the Mets if they don't get their runner in scoring position woes rectified the way that their pitching has masked that for them all season long, their first 60 plus games into the year. And with Montas and Manaea coming back is further encouraging that the Mets will have an abundance of rotation options. But just because you have an abundance doesn't mean that you can't seek more options out there, especially when a guy in Peralta makes a lot of sense for this Mets team. And when you look at what the Mets could potentially give up, they also could consider giving up some pitching talent that isn't as good right now, but could benefit the Brewers in the future while benefiting the Mets right now and what will likely be a deep playoff run for them. So again, there's a lot of upside here. The four-seam fastball sitting 95, the changeup at 89, the curveball at 80, and the slider at 84. I would love to see this Mets pitching lab get their hands on Peralta, but I'm not in favor of locking up a guy like Peralta long term. So I love the idea of acquiring him with another year of control in his contract. That way you're not giving up too much for just a rental. You're getting a guy with control, and you're getting a guy that could really blossom and a win now stayed still, this time with David Stearns on the right side with the New York Mets versus the Milwaukee Brewers. Let me know all your thoughts about Freddie Peralta here, number 4 on our top 10 list, because at number 3, everybody, we have, in my opinion, one of, if not the best bat option, and Mr. Cedric Mullins here. Ceddy, let's talk about him. We talked about Cedric a couple days ago on the platform. In case you guys didn't check it out, please make sure to do so, as Jeff Passan has linked Cedric Mullins to the Mets as pretty much their best option at the trade deadline for sure, what they should do. And Cedric Mullins does make a level of sense, and it's in similarity to TJ Friedl, but to a greater magnitude, because Friedl doesn't have as much of the power, the slugging, the offensive upside consistently on the power front to the same degree I think a guy like Mullins does. Cedric Mullins is also in a walkier that benefits the Mets in the sense that he'll likely try to really juice up those numbers there and would thrive in a very deep lineup of the Mets should he be acquired from what's been a very unfortunate year for the Baltimore Orioles. Mullins so far this year, 10 home runs, 8 stolen bags, 232, 324, 448 clip for just under 800 OPS. His baseball savant numbers aren't overly sexy, I'll be honest, but he's in the 65th percentile in chase percentage, 59th in whip percentage, 77th in walk percentage, 84th in outs above average. Not great arm value, but 78th in sprint speed. This is a guy that, again, can give you center field reps, can give you corner outfield reps, and is a more formidable center field option right now, especially to a degree than Tyrone Taylor and Jose Siri, based on matchups. Basically, Cedric Mullins is like adding another Jesse Winker, but this time actually a guy that can play the outfield, a guy that's supposed to play the outfield for you, and he can do it at a proficient rate. That would maximize the Mets' outfield depth, and by having Mullins, you'd be able to platoon on a day-by-day basis between himself and Tyrone Taylor, and then you'd have Nimmo on left, you'd have Soto on right, and then you'd have guys like Winker and Marte battling out between DH, off the bench. You have an abundance of riches of DH options. At that point, everybody, outfield options as well. Cedric Mullins and a walk year. The Mets could eat that contract at just under $9 million without a problem. I see this as truly a nice matchup for both sides, but I would love to hear from you guys in the comments down below if you think that Cedric Mullins makes a feasible sense for this Mets team as a true outfield/DH fit for them leading up to the MLB trade deadline. Because now, guys, as we get on to number 2, let's get back onto the pitching and let's talk about Mr. Pablo Lopez, because I like Pablo Lopez. I think Lopez has all the makings of being an ace caliber starter for the Mets, and while the Mets have beat up Pablo Lopez plenty during his time with the Miami Marlins in Citi Field especially, Lopez is off to another stellar start for a Twins team that's likely not going anywhere. And on 3 years at $65+ million contract still, Lopez is on a very eatable contract for the New York Mets that are getting the best out of the prime of Pablo Lopez. And 11 starts and 60+ innings this season, a 2.82 ERA, a 3.25 expected ERA, a sub-3 FIP that we see there, and a SI ERA of sub-3.5, just over 1 WHIP rather. Pablo Lopez is a stud, everybody. And when we talk about ace caliber starters, this is where we're talking more. You know, this, in my opinion, has higher upside than even Freddie Peralta. I think Pablo Lopez has all the makings of being a true stud for the Mets in this rotation. This feels like the guy that would really be the needle mover to make this rotation go from being really good to potentially great. A guy that can give you deep innings there, deep in a playoff run when, you know, there aren't too many other guarantees as to starters that you know you're going to get 6 or 7 strong innings out of. Pablo Lopez is a workhorse, and he ate 185 innings last year, 194 the year before. He had a 3.66 ERA 2 years ago with 234 strikeouts. He had a 4 ERA last year with 198 strikeouts. He's got a 2.282 ERA so far this year with 61 strikeouts and 60 innings. Lopez is locked in, baby. And listen to the following numbers. Now, forcing fastball at 95 miles per hour, changeup at 87, sweeper at 85, curveball at 83, and the sinker at 94, folks. He tops out 88, pardon me, not tops out, but rather he's in the 88th percentile in pitching run value, 90th percentile in fastball run value, 94th percentile in breaking run value, 4th percentile in off speed because he's not an off speed guy, expected ERA 72nd percentile, expected batting average 60th percentile, fastball velocity right around league average 52nd percentile at 94.5, average exit velocity 77th percentile, chase percentage 87th percentile, whip percentage 61st percentile, K percentage 68th percentile, walk percentage 83rd percentile, barrel percentage 79th percentile, hard hit percentage 89th percentile, ground ball percentage below league average, and extension 92nd percentile. This is an ace caliber starter. This is what you want to pair with Kodai Senga, Clay Holmes, Sean Manaea, Frankie Montas, Griffin Cannings, Hyler McGill, David Pearson, everyone else in your mother at this rotation. This takes the Mets up a notch, and this helps me feel a lot more confident about the depth and the quality of the Mets' depth in their rotation leading into this year's playoffs. Get Pablo Lopez out of Minneapolis, Minnesota, and get him to Flushing, Queens with this New York Metropolitan rotation. Now, folks, at number 1, this shouldn't come as too much of a surprise, especially if you watch our video from this past day or so. That's going to be, yes, Mr. Jarren Duran. Now, let me preface by saying that as much as I like Jarren Duran, the whole point of the Duran discussion is that I think for what you're getting, a better bang for your buck on trade value-wise is probably going to be Cedric Mullins. But when you talk about upside, when you talk about youth, when you talk about versatility, when you talk about potential team fit, there are a few guys that make greater sense to a degree than Mr. Jarren Duran. Well, what you're getting with him with his immediate MLB on-field product. And 65 games this season, 4 home runs, 35 RBIs, 13 stolen bags rate, a 274 average, a 329 on base, a 427 slug for 7% above league average as a batter. He's in the 95th percentile in base running value, 80th in batting run value, 27th in fielding run value. He's not a great fielder, but he can play all over the outfield. 62nd percentile in arm value, 69th in arm strength, 93rd in sprint speed. So he and Tyrone Taylor would be bolting like madmen there in center field together. 88th percentile in average exit velocity, 75th in hard hit percentage, 85th in bat speed. Everything else is pretty much around league average, but he is chasing at a good rate there in the 24th percentile and doesn't walk too much. So pretty much my big concern with Duran is less about what you're getting with him, but versus what you have to give up to get him for a guy who isn't a free agent until the 2029 offseason, right? So that alone is why I don't see the Mets landing Duran without having to give up a decent arm and a leg. I'm just not sure they want to do that given the context of Cedric Mullins, Luis Robert, and other outfield options, TJ Friedel too, that will be out there. But nonetheless, Duran would be a fantastic fit for this Mets team. A speed demon on the base pass, a guy who has moxie, who knows how to handle high pressure cooker situations. He feels like the kind of guy that could just see hitting that an absolute bomb there in the playoffs, just like Jesse Winker. He gives off those similar vibes. I don't know if maybe it's kind of the one sleeve that he has going on or what. Maybe the tats are getting me. All I know is that Duran feels like he would be a really nice fit for this Mets team, who could play all over the outfield, give you DH reps as well. But at the same time, if you're going to trade for someone like this, he's got to make sure he's getting consistent reps out there for guys under team control for the next number of years. So that's something to bear in mind if you're David Stearns and Carlos Mendoza. And then you add in the fact that he won't come cheap, which will probably be more the case with some of the other outfielders that we already talked about in today's video. So Mets fans, let me know all your thoughts in the comments down below. How do you feel about Jarren Duran and everyone else that we discuss as potential fits in our top 5, or rather top 10 trade target video, I should say, everybody. Duran had 21 home runs, 75 RBIs, and 34 stolen bags last year for 29% above league average and roughly a 7 WAR season. So I definitely see the high there. I see the upside. I think you can get even more than what you've gotten out of Duran so far. Just a matter of giving up the pieces it'll take to acquire him. Whatever your thoughts are, drop them down below in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. We will have content dropping for you guys again tomorrow, this Tuesday, technically June 10th, for our latest Big Mets Updates video. Then we'll probably have a live show later on that evening, and we may have a watch party either during Game 1 of that series against the Nationals or Game 2 of this series, which will be Wednesday on the platform. So be on the lookout for it. Thank you guys so much again for watching. Get ready and buckled up for consistent trade talk every week on the platform leading up to the MLB trade deadline. And this is your guy, Wardy, signing out. Let's go Mets, baby. Peace out, folks.